With star wide receivers seemingly getting traded every other day in the NFL nowadays, it had Matt and I wondering, has the value of the number one receiver diminished similar to the way the running back position has diminished in the NFL?
I think you're somewhat seeing that, Scott, just because that salary cap hit continues to go up, up, and up. I mean, you're looking at Tyreek Hill. He's now the highest paid at $30 million. You had Devontae Adams, who was the highest paid for like 5 days, and he's at $28 million. And then DeAndre Hopkins, who held that title for a while, he's at $25 million. And I think the thing you have to look at, and this is always true about the NFL in particular because of the way that their salary cap is set up, you always have to look at where the money's going and how the teams are able to allocate that cost elsewhere. And I think because you've seen these top wide receivers go right before or after they sign these massive, record-setting contracts, it's showing that teams, especially Super Bowl contending teams and playoff contending teams, are willing to let those guys walk, receive assets back, and trust that they can recreate the production and the value that player had, and basically move on and still continue with success, like what you saw with the running back, where you don't want to pay a Todd Gurley or a Le'Veon Bell because you know that you can probably go get a guy, if you have a good offensive line and a good running scheme, you can go get a guy in the 3rd to 5th round that will be suitable for a playoff contender.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense, but when I'm talking about the point that you made about a Super Bowl contending team being willing to let a superstar receiver go away, what about the teams that aren't Super Bowl contenders? I feel like that's how you get into the Super Bowl contender range, is by adding a superstar, bona fide number one receiver. And that's why I feel like the value of a number one receiver has never been high. We just seen not too long ago, I'm going to use a couple recent examples, and there's too many of them in recent history in the NFL. Josh Allen was a very average quarterback until Stephon Diggs arrived in town. Joe Burrow showed flashes as a rookie before his injury. You bring in Jamar Chase, you drafted Jamar Chase, a bona fide number one receiver. They go to the Super Bowl. The recent Super Bowl champion, the LA Rams, just had the Triple Crown winner at the receiver position in Cooper Kupp. And that's what these teams are trying to replicate. Having a number one receiver in the NFL nowadays affects your entire offense. Defenses have to game plan for somebody like a Devontae Adams, a Tyreek Hill, whether you're doubling them or having extra eyes, and it opens up things for the rest of your team. And I think that's why these receivers are starting to realize how valuable they are. It's why Tyreek Hill is able to say, you know what? I know Kansas City is a great city, a great franchise. I know Patrick Mahomes is probably the greatest quarterback in the league, but I'm valuable to the point where a team like a Miami Dolphins, who is a good franchise, has talent, is wanting to take that next step. And you know how you do that? You add a superstar wide receiver, a bona fide number one. And that's what we're seeing. It's similar to Las Vegas Raiders. The Vegas Raiders just made the playoffs. They have one of the best pass catchers already on that roster in Darren Waller, but adding a Devontae Adams completely changes things, completely shakes things up, and makes that offense infinitely more scary. So that's my thing. I think, like I said, the receiver position has never been more valuable than it is right now, especially at the top of the top. And Deebo Samuel's probably going to be next. I mean, we saw what he was able to do both as a runner, as a pass catcher last year. And it's going to result in him probably getting a massive payday. It might not be in San Francisco, but he's going to make another team. He's going to allow another team to make that jump from maybe middle of the pack to talking about a Super Bowl contender. So that's how I see it.
I mean, I understand that, but you talk about these teams that are making this jump, and yeah, they make the jump, but have they actually won it? I get that Jamar Chase is a good example. They made it to the Super Bowl, but that was on a rookie deal, and they were able to pay other players and positions more importantly. To that point, you talk about Stephon Diggs. Yeah, Josh Allen has improved since then, but they haven't won a Super Bowl. The Chiefs were able to win, but that was when Travis Kelce was their lead receiver, getting over 1,000 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill had, I believe it was around 800 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns, and the highest paid receiver and player on that team was Sammy Watkins, a complete non-factor as far as value goes. And so you talk about paying these highest paid wide receivers is great. It may move you up, but does it make you contenders and actually going to win the Super Bowl? So Miami's going to win the Super Bowl this year?
I mean, obviously, likely not. But
okay.
But the chances of them doing that have been infinitely improved. You can just look at the Vegas odds. Miami is a much better team right now than they were before they acquired Tyreek Hill. To be successful in the NFL, you need a legitimate number one. Name a good team in this past season who didn't have a star number one wide receiver. You can't. I'm going to cut you, save you some time. You simply can't. And that's just how it is. That's how you win in the NFL nowadays. If you don't have somebody like that on the perimeter, you're not going to win many games. You're not going to be looked at as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. It's why many people are down on the Green Bay Packers without Davante Adams. What does that receiving room look like? Not much. And because of that, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, there's not high expectations right now in Green Bay.
I mean, the Raiders had Hunter Renfrow as their number one. So
how far did that get them?
It got them to the playoffs, to your point.
In the first
It
round
got
loss.
them to the playoffs.
Right.
To
but
the
they also had
team
Darren
that
Waller.
ended up making it to.
But they also had Darren Waller, who was one of the best pass catchers in the NFL.
But again, you're talking about pass catcher. Are we talking about wide receiver or are we talking about pass catcher? Because I mentioned the Chiefs, and that's Travis Kelce. Okay, so then why are, in recent years, you look at pass catchers, you have said that Kansas City is okay because they still have Travis Kelce.
Yes.
Who is only making, last year he made about $7 million. And he is a pass catcher. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, tight end is more valuable than wide receiver because they let their number one bona fide top 5 wide receiver in the league go because they had a great tight end.
No.
San Francisco made it to the Super Bowl because they had a great tight end. The best pass catcher on the Philadelphia Eagles when they won their Super Bowl was Zach Ertz.
Okay, but we're talking about recent history now. Now you're going back further. Look at our most recent champions. The most recent champion had a superstar bona fide number receiver. Before that, same thing with Mike Evans in Tampa Bay this year. Before that, same thing. 2 great pass catchers in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So,
but you switched from the last 2 years was wide receivers.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill was mentioned the first name I mentioned 3 years ago with the Chiefs.
This is Travis Kelce. It was Travis Kelce. He was the main catalyst to that.
But Tyreek Hill, it was still a number 1 wide receiver on that team. It just makes the Chiefs greater that they have that and a great tight end. That's the point, and that's why the Chiefs are willing to part ways with the Tyreek Hill, because the Chiefs are not in the same position as 98% of the NFL, where they have a superstar bona fide number receiver like Tyreek Hill, and they also have another great pass catcher. The Chiefs are just living in luxury. They're able to make a move like that, make part ways with the Tyreek Hill because they have somebody like that.
Okay, but the Packers are parting ways with Davante Adams. They never won a ring with Davante Adams. The point is that as these wide receivers continue to grow in value, yes, they're very valuable to these teams, but you have to make those decisions at the upper echelon where you cut costs. And the Chiefs deciding to trade Tyreek Hill means that they believe that they can take that $30 million that they would pay him every year and replicate that in a way that still allows them to be a Super Bowl contender.
And that's fine because you have the greatest quarterback in the league and you still have one of the best pass catchers, tight ends in the league.
All of that continues to point out that the wide receiver isn't that valuable when it comes to all these other positions.
That's not true.
Because you're putting Kansas City ahead.
You started your soliloquy at the beginning. In the NFL, you have to follow where the money goes. Where is the money going recently? In the hands and bank accounts of receivers, because they're arguably the most valuable player position in the NFL right now.
No, if you're talking about overall, you're talking about left tackle, always gets paid. You're talking about a pass rusher.
I'm not putting them ahead of quarterback or left tackle, but I would argue that they're just as important.
I would argue that there's 3 positions that are higher paid.
I would argue that they're just as important as a pass rusher.
No. I mean, listen.
Look at recent history.
Look at recent history. Those guys that you're talking about aren't getting paid either. And if you want to follow the money is going to these teams that are willing to pay it. The New York Jets were just as willing to pay the wide receiver and get Tyreek Hill because they have it.
Step.
Yeah, is Jacksonville trying to take the next step when they paid Christian Kirk $20 million?
Well, Christian Kirk isn't a number 1 bona fide receiver, so I don't know why he was being brought up.
But it's following the money. So they were willing to just throw money at a wide receiver.
Yes, they
were. Is it going to make them better? No.
It's literally going to make them better.
No. I mean, listen, the wide receiver position is great and it is important. But once it comes to that point where you have to pay them an exorbitant amount of money, most teams are going to be willing to move on from that point.
Somebody's going to be willing to do that.
Yeah, but it's not going to make them Super Bowl contenders.
In some cases, it will.
Is the Miami Dolphins right now a Super Bowl contender?
I'm not willing to say that, but they're much better than they are now, than they were before the acquisition of Tyreek Hill.
You could easily say that they could do that through the draft, or they could have gotten one of those other great wide receivers that are.
That's not true. That's not true. If they drafted the best receiver in this class, we're not going to look at them the same way that we are now, that they've drafted Tyreek Hill, a legit superstar in his prime. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, we are, because you just talked about Jamar Chase. And they got him through the draft.
But we didn't know that. We weren't looking at before the season when the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase. We weren't saying that they're a Super Bowl contender. We had to see them actually play on the field and show that he's that before we looked at the Bengals as that. So just drafting somebody, we're not going to look at them, oh, wow, they basically got a Tyreek Hill. No. Tyreek Hill is a proven commodity in the NFL, and a draft pick is just that.
But the fact
until
that
he
you're
proves
willing
himself.
to point out that Jamar Chase is that now, and they got him through the draft, the fact that you can go and look at the Vikings who, they sent Stephon Diggs away and then they replaced him with Justin Jefferson, who's basically just as good. I mean, it shows that you can take that risk in the draft and you don't have to worry about the bona fide commodity. It's the same thing with the running back position. Why pay somebody that much money when you can go into the 3rd or 5th round and get that on a rookie deal? And this year, there's so many good wide receivers. We're talking about it all the time. That's why the Chiefs were willing to let go of Tyreek Hill, because they're like, if we have 2 first-round picks, we're going to be able to replace him.
Yeah, we'll see how many receivers in this draft class turn into Jamar Chase or Tyreek Hill. But I think we've talked about this ad nauseum. We can agree to disagree, I believe. Let us know who's right. Tell us who's on the right side of this debate here. But I think this was a fun one.
Oh, yeah.
We'll do it again on a different topic on tomorrow's episode of Simple Question. For Scott Proctor and Matt Morris here, we'll see you then.